This is Angel Soriano once again. Welcome to today's segment of Week, friends. We are both Facebook and YouTube Live. We tried it last week. We actually liked the way we did it, and we had some feedback that was positive. So obviously, it's always better than negative feedback, right? So anyway, so we're on both. Let's see how it works this week. If you're new to the show, this is a show where we offer solutions to your canine behaviors and training questions, and we do it live, okay? Simply because it really stresses out our producer. That's probably why we do it live. By the way, since this is a live show, we may encounter some technology issues. We were having some a few minutes ago, so I don't know if they're all solved or not. Just please work with us. We'll get through it one way or the other. But meanwhile, I want to make sure that before we start, let me explain to you how it is you can engage us, because we do want this back and forth yah-yahing between each other, okay? Just add your questions in the comments section of either your Facebook or your YouTube feed, and our producer is going to pick up on it. He will then read them, and we will try to address them, right? It's not that hard for us. We just have to bounce between a bunch of screens. So it's really that simple. So engage us. So for now, tell us you can see or hear us by commenting back. Give us a thumbs up or heart, anything. Just say, I'm here. And then at least we know technology is working on the other end. We know it's working here, but who knows who's seeing us. So let's move on to today's topic. And I really wanted to continue the discussion we had last week. We ended up with a lot of questions last week, so we were not able to cover the topic of that was at hand. So we're going to attempt to do it, and if we get interrupted, that's fine. So we'll call this as a sequel. What do you think? Part 2. So the topic we started last week, and I'd like to be able to touch on it again. And again, your questions are much more important. But it dealt with the dog days of summer and the effects that it has on dogs, and tips as to how to get through it and how to make it easier on them, and on and on. And by the way, if you make it easier on them, it's going to be easier on you, right? We all know how that works. So that was the topic, and we got, I don't know, through maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes worth of topic on that matter, and then we ended up with some questions, and it was kind of fun. It was good. So by the way, as I said earlier, your questions to me and to James are much more important than our topic of the day. So if you have them, just pop them. Just let us know what you think. So, and we'll address them just as they come up. So James, I think we got through part of the heat-related symptoms last time, but nonetheless, I think it's in the other room, the notes you're looking for. But we got through the heat-related symptoms, But I'll cover them quickly in case we have new people here. We were talking about, okay, so what are the symptoms if your dog is suffering from excessive heat, right? And certainly we know that they're going to be excessively thirsty. That's obvious. It happens to us as well, right? Vomiting, interesting enough, if they get to a certain point, they will start vomiting, and that's excessive heat. Diarrhea, some of them will get. By the way, it's not like you're going to get all of them. Dog may show one more than the other. Energy, lack of energy, lethargic, sleepy, mopey, kind of out of it. You see those kind of things, you should be worried, right? We also talked about, lack of appetite and heart rate increase. And by the way, it's easy to tell. You just put your hand on their chest and see how it's beating, right? And you can actually even count it. Dog's heartbeat is a little faster than humans, but it'll be obvious to you that there's an issue if it's really pounding very, very fast. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's important, right? Bright red tongue and pale gums. I think we covered that as well, but I'll cover it as well today. Those are things to watch for. Excessive panting, thick saliva. I mean, again, your dog's not going to get all of them. It's going to get some of these. So anyway, those are the heat-related symptoms, and there's probably a couple more that I probably missed, and you may want to talk to your veterinarian. Certainly, he or she is a lot more qualified than I am to be talking about this, but I think it's important because the temperature a couple of days ago here in the Midwest was 107, 108. Oh, actually, I left the university the other day, and it was 111 degrees on our big sign. So we know that it's hot, it's going to get hotter, and your dog's going to pay the price. So what to do, right? James, how are we doing? Any questions yet, or are we good?
Jerry's wanting wanting to do just some general training with his pup. I'm trying to get some more information, and we can...
Sure, and then you'll bring it up.
On that.
Okay, that's fine. So when do we walk these animals? It's important. We always tell people, look, the best bonding you can do is to take your dog for a walk. And it shouldn't stop because it's summer, but it's a good idea that you do it intelligently and you don't kill your dog in the process or make him sick in the process. So my input to you is the following. Yes, it's important to walk them, but, make sure that you do it in the early AMs. It's much better than the late PMs, unless you're having a good day. But let's assume this is summer as it is. So walk them in the early AMs. It's probably the coolest time of the day. And I would urge that you actually touch the ground before you leave and say, how hot is this? Or if you're moving dogs from one place to the other and you're walking them and, the sun is pounding on the cement, touch it. Put your hand on the cement. If it's too hot for you, trust me, it's too hot for them. Okay, so why put them through pain? So, for those people that have dogs that have spent, some time in the backyard, I really wanted to cover this last week because we were headed into a bad week of heat. Right now, we're about to have the next 5 days in the 90s, which is not bad, right? So, but nonetheless, because of that, I mean, it's going to get hotter after that, by the way, but because of that, it's probably not the best week to be saying all this. But for those who have animals dogs that spend some time in the backyard, either because maybe that's where they live, and I won't judge you, by the way, not in this segment, I won't, but some people, they go to work and they leave the dogs in the backyard. I mean, that's kind of a normal thing for a lot of people to do. So here's the thing, okay? If you're going to do this, just know that dogs need a shade. They need water in hot days. So, there's so many things you can do. One of them is you can actually freeze a bucket of water, those little yellow buckets, white buckets or whatever. Just buy one of those. You can freeze this giant ice cube and leave it behind it. It'll probably melt in a couple of hours, but they have a couple of hours of really good stuff. They're going to lick it. They're going to play with it. They're going to do all sorts of stuff. The other thing is you can actually get a plastic feeding trough. You can find them in a lot of supply places. Don't get the little kiddie pools because the dogs will destroy it in no time at all. It's wasted money. But those troughs, they're a little bit more money, but they last forever. We have 3 or 4 at the U, and boy, they've been there for 10 years and they're still working, right? And we put a lot of use in these. Another little trick that works is if you get a small rug, and just wet it down every morning right before you leave, it'll gives them a place to go hang, right? Which is really not a bad thing to do. It'll dry off eventually throughout the day, but at least they get half a day worth of a place that is cooler than the rest, right? The air hits it. Even if hot air hits it, it's still going to be cooler than anything else. And of course, we talked about giving them shade somewhere. Maybe you can put the stuff in the shade so they can play with it. If you don't have a lot of shade in the backyard, I suggest you keep an eye on it and say, okay, which part of the yard gets more shade? And what I mean by that is that, the sun moves, obviously, so because of a fence or a structure, you're going to get a spot that gets some shade. So what spot is that? And, what area of your yard gets the most shade, even if it's through a structure, that's the place you do it. It may not start shade it, but it's going to end shaded, and it's going to be the most amount of shade. That's the area you should really associate with your dog so they can have a place to hang. So anyway, so those are important things. If any of this resonates with you, if you have ideas, by the way, let's share it socially. The rest of the people would like to hear what it is you have to say as to how to keep your dog cool. So anyway, those troughs, by the way, again, they're lifesavers in most cases, okay? Because dogs will drink out of it and they'll hang in it. They can't swim in it because it's not big enough, but they work really, really well for this kind of stuff. Let's see, what else, James? Can we talk about, do you have any questions yet, or are we good? Okay. So we can talk about, here's a good one. We say this to a lot of people at the U. If you're going to go for a walk, no matter what time of the year it is, okay, let's say this is spring and you're saying, things are pretty good. Wear a dark shirt, okay? It makes a huge difference. If you overheat in this dark shirt because you're saying, gosh, the sun is pounding on me, your dog shouldn't be out there with you, right? You overheat, the dog overheats. So anyway, so make sure you do that because that really works. Next is, we talked about early morning. We talked about touching the pavement. We talked about, excessive play. Here's the other thing in the summer, right? People do this and let's say you have a high energy dog, and I have at least one in my house that is very high energy. She doesn't know the difference, right? I mean, Diva, she has no clue if the temperature is 110 or 60. She plays just as intense, right? So the problem though is that in a hot day, she's going to end up passing out. She doesn't know the difference. So, somebody has to be smart enough, right, between the two of us. So on excessively hot days, then knock off the play. You may want to throw the ball once or twice and then put it away, because a dog like mine doesn't stop. Like, she'll start throwing the ball at me and getting it, and before you know it, she's playing by herself.
Right.
So I think for people that have high energy dogs, just put the toys away after you play once or twice, and you're going to be a lot safer. Okay, just.
Yeah, or I mean, put them away during the heat of the day, but it goes back to like what you said earlier, walking early in the morning or late in the evening. If you would rather do a play session rather than a walking session, that's the best time to do that. Yeah. Because when you have a highly driven dog like Diva is, she's going to go until she passes out.
Yeah.
And when she passes out with that ball in her mouth, when she wakes up, she's still going to want to play some more.
Right.
So it's
How true. She falls asleep with the ball in her mouth. That's kind of funny. We talked about keeping them hydrated, but it's interesting. There's they got these little auto waterers. They're about this big, folks, and it's just a metal device. You screw it onto your spigot. You turn on the spigot, and no water comes out of it unless they tap it and they touch it. And when it does, you have this clean, nice, cold water coming out of the wall. I suggest, if you have the ability to have a spigot outside, put one of those on it. They teach themselves how to use it. You just got to take it to them and hit it once or twice in front of them, and they'll see that they can get fresh water. And from then on, you don't have to keep a big giant bucket of anything, any kind of water, but for drinking purposes, they get their own fresh water. Those are really, really well worth the money, and they're about $5 or $6. They're not super expensive.
I do have a question here from Shane.
Sure.
And we're probably going to need a little more information if he's tuning in right now. But he has two male dogs, a Mal and a mixed dog, both males, that can't seem to get along. So he's wanting to know kind of what to do. So just in general.
Sure. So who is that, Sean?
Shane.
So Shane, there's discussions like this, they're so much better typically face to face, because we can engage, right? But go ahead and continue to put in your input on this as we get into it. Generally speaking, if you have two dogs that are not getting along, the first question that one would have is, are these new dogs to each other, right? Is this a new relationship, or is this established relationship and they're just being boneheads with each other, right? So typical, different answers here, right? Depends on what's going on. If this is a brand new relationship they've never met, then you need to draw back from whatever you've done so far and make your introductions a lot slower, right? Meaning, 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes an hour, and then, progress to 10 minutes an hour, and, ease them into it. It could be that these guys are just not used to, being together. The other is, while you're doing this, pay attention to who's the real alpha dog between the two of them, right? I mean, who's displaying alpha characteristics, because we need to support that role, right? If they're both doing it, then we're having an alpha struggle, right? And that needs to be thought out too. But so that's what you do if they don't know each other well, and these are just new dogs to the household, or one of them is new to the household. If these are dogs that have always they've been together for years, let's say, and they have issues getting along, there's a good likelihood that, back to the alpha struggle, there's a good likelihood that you have an alpha struggle issue that needs to be resolved, okay? Most of these issues, interesting enough, are the type that you probably need professional help. If it moves into the alpha struggle piece, you'll need professional help. We need to coach you with, really, who's the alpha dog? Because there may be a struggle for a reason. Typically, there's a struggle because their alpha positioning is so close to each other, right? You want a very large, separated position when you have dogs in your cells and everything. You want to have big distance between those two roles. If they're really tight, then it means that they're going to keep switching back and forth, and that's when you're going to get all those arguments and issues and fighting, and in some cases blood scenes. So it's a tough subject to say, hey, do A, B, C, and it'll be fixed, because it's not. It depends on the situation. It depends on the family, the members of the family. Are there any other dogs involved? Because they could also be causing part of this problem, right? So anyway, but in most cases, it's fixable. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yeah, he says that they're new to each other, and
Yeah.
and it really seems like an alpha struggle.
Yeah.
So I think the best thing, come in and let us try and work out through our charting and our evaluation process on who is your real alpha, and then we can start the homework.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to get on top of, but all in all, it can be done.
Yeah. And just some general coaching. One is if you can tell who the alpha dog is, and by the way, we don't choose that. Okay, you don't say the first dog I had here is my favorite dog, therefore he's the alpha dog. You don't say that, right? The dogs typically establish it. If you can tell which one is the alpha dog, right? And by the way, it's not the winner of the fight, right? It's, there's a lot of other characteristics you got to pay attention to. So if you can tell who the alpha dog is, my input to you is that is the one you reward for being the alpha dog. You don't reward the fight, by the way. You reward the fact that he's the alpha dog. He's the one you pet first, you love on first, you do everything with first. And immediately, the minute you do that, then, providing that you are the ultimate alpha leader of your pack, immediately after you start doing that, you're going to see behaviors in both dogs where they start accepting you. They start realizing that, not only are you the big guy in the pack, but this other brown dog is number one and I am number two and the other one's number three. They start understanding that. But it's really about promoting and sustaining that promotion of that alpha dog. But don't get it wrong, because if you do, you're going to have some big arguments, right? If you promote the wrong dog, it's going to go all downhill. So anyway, that's a great question. Very good.
Real quick, Terry asks, what's the difference between fear aggression and anger aggression? I'm assuming what he's referring to as far as anger aggression, maybe defense-based aggression.
Yeah. Big, huge difference. So I'm going to put some words around it, just like James did. Fear aggression is really easy. It's very, very a term that is very easy. It's used in the business by everybody. Fear aggression is exactly that. It's a fear-based episode. It's a dog that assaults, attacks, barks, or growls, does whatever he does in fear mode, meaning he is afraid for his life. He's not protecting anybody. Right? A lot of people mistake that and they go, yeah, my dog will, he's protecting me. No, if it's a fear-based aggression, he's afraid of what's going on and he is protecting himself, right? And sometimes they'll initiate the argument in order to protect themselves, meaning, sometimes a good offense is much better than a good defense, right? So they have that down. An experienced dog that has had fear aggression for a long time will often bark first and growl first. And that's because they get the desired result. And the desired result, if they're growling at a person, we're smart enough to back off, aren't we? Right? We're smart enough to go, ooh, this dog wants to kill me. So just know that all things being the same, dogs that display fear aggression are doing it for themselves. Okay. And you'll see, typically they're skittish, and you'll see tail movement that is really low. Sometimes you'll see hackles really big. Just know that that's a dog making himself bigger, right? This is the law of the jungle. If you're bigger, then you're obviously meaner, and people or other dogs are going to back off. So that's fear aggression. The term, what was the term he used on the other? Anger aggression. Okay. I don't use that term. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I can tell you that the opposite of fear aggression is something we call defense aggression. Okay. Defense aggression is a dog that truly is fighting for its pack, very confident. The opposite, right? This is the mirror image of the other dog I just described. There's a dog that is defending what's rightfully his, which could be his house or his people, his football. It could be anything, but they're tremendous fighters, and I don't mean that they all do this. Diva is a defense aggressive dog, but guess what? She's personal protection trained, right? Everybody's welcome into this house until I say a certain word. At that point, she turns into defense aggression, which is the best fighter you can have on your team, okay? There's a little ninja that will kick somebody's tail because you told her to. So if later on, and I'm talking about, personal protection, let's do that for a second. If you're ever looking for a dog to protect your family, you're looking for a dog that has the capacity to have defense aggression, not fear aggression, okay? Unfortunately, most people pick a fear-aggressive dog because of our sensitive selves, okay? You go look at a litter, and what do? You pick the dog that is laying underneath the chair or far away from you or doesn't want to be with you. It's fearful, it's afraid, it's whining, and people say, hey, I'm taking that one. You always take the underdog. it's the underdog could potentially have fear. Okay, so those are things for you to know. That's a really good question, though. That's great. What do you got?
All right, Julie.
Julie.
She wants to know if we can train a 10-year-old Schnauzer who's set in their ways. Used to do some training, but he doesn't really listen anymore. Mostly barks and has an attitude.
Okay. So, all right. So the standard answer, Julie, is yes. All dogs are trainable. Now, you said Schnauzer. There are some excuses or some breeds out there that are a little tougher than others. Okay. German breeds, by the way, are tough. Okay, they're super intelligent, but they're tough. So I'll assume this is a miniature Schnauzer. They're pretty popular. Not a giant Schnauzer, but so here's the deal. 10-year-old dog has got 10-year-old habits. If you're saying your dog's not listening at 10 years of age, you may want to get hearing checked out. I mean, is it really a medical thing, right? Or is your dog just being your typical 10-year-old Schnauzer who forgot some of his commands, or even more so being stubborn of the commands, right? So my input is, one, yes, get back into any kind of training program, okay? And I would suggest don't get into anything that's treat-based because you're going to struggle, okay? This dog is going to take its food and not do what you want him to do, or you're going to be dedicated to food for the rest of your life for him to do something or her to do something. So yes, they're trainable. You have to stay on it, but you're going to have to be much more consistent than if this was a 1-year-old Schnauzer, right? 10-year-old, it's got some established routines. But the good thing is that they're very, very smart. Let's assume that the hearing is fine. Super, super smart. But because they're smart, typically they try to outsmart their owner. So don't be offended by that term. But they typically try that, and it works in most cases. Okay. So great question.
One more real quick.
Yes.
Carly wants to know how to fix a lazy puppy.
Lazy puppy.
Yeah.
Okay.
He sits, he lays down, but whenever he lays down, he won't get back up.
Okay.
Also doesn't care when she gets on to him for being on the couch.
Okay, got it. All right, lazy dogs. So to me, when you say that, it sounds like a low energy animal. So meaning, we were just talking about, one of my dogs that is high, super driven energy out of her mind. This I'll assume is the opposite, probably very low energy. No prey drive or low prey drive. Low prey drive is when, predatory reflex, you throw a ball and your dog may not be one that wants to go after it, right? So what you do is you need to be a lot happier. You have to be a lot more on your game. As a matter of fact, this is going to be more of a workout on you, Julie, than it will be on the dog. And what I mean by that is you need to become happier and much more interesting than that couch. Much more interesting than whatever he's doing at the time, or chewing that bone, or whatever it is. So I would, whenever you're doing any kind of work, I would remove any kind of chewable bones and things that your dog may have, or chewable toys that they may have laying around. Get rid of all that, make it, just a clean environment, and say, okay, now we're going to do some work. We're going to do our heels and our sits and our downs and our stays and our come. But I urge you strongly that you become a lot more interesting than that grass blade he's looking at, right? So you're going to have a lot more energy in you. Now, the other thing is, we talked earlier about, a different call, a different question. I mentioned don't use food. This is a good opportunity to use a little bit of food, but make it a high reward food. And what I mean by that is get something that your dog goes crazy over, right? If you have not figured out what that is, slice up a bunch of hot dogs. It'll stink up your hands, but most dogs like hot dogs. Okay, you don't have to cook them, of course. Just slice them nice and thin. You want little tiny pieces. You're not trying to feed your dog. You're trying to entertain them. Okay, don't overdo it. Okay, it's never a good idea. But if you offer one of these every 20 commands, every 30 commands, your dog starts looking forward to the fact that, hey, I got to listen to this thing. I got to listen to the boss for so many times, and all of a sudden something's going to drop. Okay, so that is an opportunity to use treats that is, it would work better than not, right? Especially on low energy animals. But anyway, consider yourself blessed. Most people that have, low energy dogs, they have a dog that it's mellow and they have a nice life. High energy dogs will drive you bananas. So great question, though. James, how are we doing on time?
We're 5 minutes.
Oh, but I guess we need to finish up then. So great question, people. We love doing this because of these questions. So there you have it, folks. Thank you for tuning in to our Ask the Dogman show. live as always. We appreciate you all being here. It's kind of fun for us to do it. Like I said, these questions, I get energized from it. I'll be wired the entire rest of the day with all this stuff, okay? If we did not get to your question today, we'll go ahead and respond later on in the comment section, so at least you get some tips. And some of those are good ones that you ask after the hour here. We're going to bring them up next week anyway, so other people can do it. So we'll be back next week. Okay, next week, same day, same time. That's July 31st at 12:30 in the same place. So come in, tune in, tell your friends. Remember, if you like this, that's all we ask for. Just share it, like us, watch us, tell friends verbally, tell friends on social media. All we're looking for is that from you, okay? And we appreciate it. So, friends, don't struggle with your doggy behaviors or training. Okay, this is what we do, and we'd love to help out. Just give us a shot. Give us a call. Watch a show. You get a bunch of tips. So, there it is. So, this is Angel Soriano, a.k.a. DogMan, barking back at you. You asked, we answered.